Jay, you have a TV background. G, you're the king of the internet. Bull, you come from a radio background. So I'm curious, and I've been saving this topic for you three in particular. How does the coverage of the Browns compare to the coverage of the Cavs and the Guardians in the city, and why do you think it's so different?
You know, it's funny. I just brought this up recently, Mike. I don't know if that's why you brought this up.
I had this actually on my list of topics,
Okay.
and then you brought it up, and then I was saving it to dive into more depth with you guys.
Now, when we're talking in generalities. It's not every specific person in town.
No.
There's a couple of different angles of this. I think by and large, by media and fans in this town, the Browns get a pass for almost everything. The Cavs get almost no pass, and the Guardians get no pass whatsoever.
None.
But the Cavs don't really either, more than the Guardians, but they don't really get anything. The Browns get a pass for everything. The Browns have by far been the worst of the three organizations until recently, and yet they are given way more benefit of the doubt than the other two organizations. It's always been stunning to me. But in the end, that's because by and large, there are many more people passionate about football, and specifically the Browns, than they are about the other two sports.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
No.
Look at the number of people that are assigned the Browns beat.
Yeah.
And you can add the number of people that are assigned to the Cavs and the Guardians beat, double it, triple it, and you still won't have the number of daily beat reporters that cover the Browns.
In fact, outside of Chris Fedor, I don't even can't name another Cavs beat reporter. Is there anybody else?
Not a beat reporter. Jason's on the beat.
Right, but he's not.
But
he
not
does
an
everything.
everyday travel with the team beat reporter.
Right, but just specifically beat reporter.
Chris is the only traveling Cavs beat reporter.
Okay.
He is.
For the Guardians, you have Mandy Bell,
There's
Zach
a few for the Guardians.
Meisel,
There's like 4.
Paul Hoynes.
Yeah.
What's his
Does the
name?
Beacon Journal have it every day? I think they do.
Chris Ossenheimer, but I don't think he goes on the road, though.
I don't know if he does either. I'm not sure. But to your point, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It was interesting. I have two perspectives on this, and you kind of do too. I've lived half of my life here.
Right, sure.
And I've lived half of my life outside of Ohio.
Right.
And so what I learned about the way the media covers the Browns after I moved away is exactly what you just described. Kid gloves with the Browns, and I'm going to explain why I think that's the case. And the other two teams do not get the benefit of the doubt, particularly the Guardians. They're the ones I can't figure out. They're the ones that have had, obviously the Cavs are the only ones that won a championship. But if we're going to say which team over the last 30 years has had more success, it's easily the Indians.
Right. Yeah.
They've lost 2 World Series, both Game 7s, both extra innings. They've made it to the playoffs countless times. They are the most decorated team over the last 30 years, even though the Cavs have the championship.
Right.
What I can't understand is when the media tends to pay attention to them, it's for negative stuff.
Often, yes.
And a lot of the positive stuff is overlooked. And I don't get it.
Because they hate the owner.
Probably, which I don't think is fair, because even though I don't love the way he operates, you can't argue with the results. He's been relevant. And that's what you want out of your team. You want them to be relevant. Now, I want him to spend money, and he's done it on the cheap, but what he's done with what he has spent is nothing short of a miracle. All of that being said, the reason the Browns reporters, in my view, go easy at the Browns is because it's the one thing in town that all sports fans care about. We care about it year-round, and it is a click-based society now. We know that. When we put headlines up, Deshaun Watson expected to do something no Browns quarterback has ever done before, people can be like, what the hell's that? They're going to click.
Right.
If I put on there, Deshaun Watson to return from shoulder injury in September, nobody gives a shit about that.
Yeah, right.
But if you write it the way I initially put it out there, and so what the media has learned, it's like Pavlov's dogs.
Right.
When the bell sounds, the dog comes to eat. What the reporters of this generation have learned is, if I'm nice to the Browns, people are going to click on my stuff.
That's right. And
if I'm positive, people are going to click.
People will sell their soul for that type of stuff, unfortunately.
But I feel like, so I'll give you the internet perspective. The internet perspective is different. There are people in this town who have made a living killing the Browns. When the Browns aren't relevant, and they're 1-15 and 1-16, on the internet, the rants are what get clicks.
Right.
I can
But
rant
what
and go
else
hard.
did you see? But
Well,
I've heard that
what
a
else do you
lot.
have?
I've heard that a lot. There's people that are constantly. But the Browns were so bad for so long. How positive could you be?
Right, exactly.
Well, I can understand
Yeah.
it. I think the reason why it gets the magnifying glass is that sometimes we forget. Football was started right down the street in Canton. It's the birthplace. It is. The Hall of Fame is there. It's the epicenter. Everybody knows what the state of Ohio is football. Like, so when you got something that big and you have a team in the Cleveland Browns who have the greatest player ever, Jim Brown. They have the greatest coach ever, Paul Brown. They got one of the most storied programs and franchises of all time, right? You're in the hotbed. We just don't see it because we're not good and we haven't traditionally been good. But name me a place anywhere in the world. Bernie Kosar is not in the Hall of Fame, but he get recognized like one.
Yeah, right.
See what I'm saying? Like, I don't know no other place in the world. Like, Ken O'Brien can't be he's not going up to people in New York getting drinks. Bernie Kosar is a legend. It only happens in this little place.
I think in other markets similar to Cleveland,
Not like this.
it
Not for
would
this.
happen, but
Not-
I don't know. I
Not
can't
like
speak.
this. Not
New
for
York's
this.
not a good comparison. It's too big a city.
We have been doing this
Yeah.
forever. And guess what? People still come back. It's in their blood. It just is what it is.
It's a long. I mean, this could be a long conversation. I mean, part of the issue is that we are now in sports talk, whether it's on the internet, YouTube, radio.
It all hits the internet. That's
Yes,
the one
right.
thing it all has in common.
Yes, and the younger people in the business, by and large, don't know baseball.
No.
We're seeing more and more of that. So when I came up in New York, everybody at the Fan in New York could talk baseball. Because in New York, you have to be able to talk
By the
baseball.
way, New York baseball is what Cleveland football is.
Right. Now, at any moment on any day when I was in New York, I could talk Mets, Yankees, Jets, Giants. Those four teams I could talk about anytime.
Yeah.
Anytime. It didn't matter. And then the Knicks after that.
But you could talk college. You could talk college basketball too.
Not really.
I mean, college basketball was huge in the Northeast.
Well, when I was a kid, but not when I was on the Fan right before coming here, we didn't talk. I mean, we talked college basketball a little, but not that much. But
New York's a baseball town.
But you had to know baseball to work in New York. You don't have to know baseball to work here.
No.
And so we have a lot of members of the media that know nothing about baseball. And then they jump in, which is fine. And, listen, the one thing I'll say is, and I appreciate this, there's two types of when it comes to covering baseball. There's a lot of people in this town that don't know baseball. But in that group, there's two camps. There's people like Tyvus, for example. He's not a big baseball guy, but he tries.
Sure.
Right? Like, he watches the games, he's into it, and he's making an effort. But that's in the minority. A lot of the people in this town that don't know baseball as well, they don't care.
Yeah.
They're not even trying.
and what's interesting to me is that the market has tolerated it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, those people would have been run out. Where if you go into New York and you try talking baseball, you'll be exposed in one day.
Yeah.
If you don't know it, and then you're gone.
Now, the thing you can get away with in New York that I learned that you can't get away with here as much, believe it or not, is in New York, you don't have to know anything outside of New York because
that's true.
You could talk national stuff in like big football games, maybe with football a little bit. You don't have to know teams in other markets.
Although the baseball guys in New York can go deep on the Dodgers, the Giants. I mean, when you listen to Russo talk baseball, and I don't know where you are. I've never talked to you about Chris Russo.
Yeah.
He's one of my favorite baseball voices ever.
Yeah, no doubt. I think he's become, like a lot of the older guys, very curmudgeonly in his old age.
He is a curmudgeon now.
But he knows every team in baseball, and he knows them inside and out. But the problem with guys like him sometimes is he knows the other teams better from like 10, 20 years ago. That he's not in the minutia of the rosters on the other teams now.
He is, but not like he used to be.
Not like he used to be.
Yeah, he still goes on MLB and talks. He can get deep into it, but not like once upon a... And you talk... When you bring up the history of the game, when he wrote his book, he came on Cold Pizza to talk about it, and he goes, "Where you from?" I said, "I'm from Cleveland." He goes, "All right, tell me the best players ever played in Cleveland."
Yeah.
And I rattled off 20 of them. He's like, "All right, you're a baseball fan."
Yeah, right.
Like,
he knows it inside.
The history...
He could tell you a story about any baseball team from the 50s, the 40s, the 60s.
Yes.
It's crazy. But, whereas, and you just can't, it's harder to have a conversation about the Guardians. If you're doing a radio show and your partner doesn't know baseball,
it's tough.
It's hard to do that.
It's
it
tough.
makes it challenging.
Yeah, it's tough.
Fortunately, on this show, we have a good balance of guys. Like, But even on this show, we have everybody on this show can talk really well about football.
Sure.
And then when it comes to baseball and basketball, some of us are stronger in basketball, some of us are stronger in baseball.
Right.
I admit
that's
it.
true.
I don't know basketball as well.
And I don't either.
I try. Even though I make fun of the regular season, I try. But I don't know the other teams that well in basketball.
Right.
Whereas baseball, I'm a lunatic. I know every player on every team.
You do. You are a lunatic.
It's crazy.
Basketball has fallen to the wayside a little bit. Like, I was going to do a video, and it talks about how, like, as you get older, as I get older, there is a less and less of a population that grows up in schools that play anything, right? Baseball is diminishing. Like,
What do you mean by that?
So there's a study that shows that
less kids are playing sports.
enrollment in football is down almost 25%.
Yeah.
Because of concussions.
Yes.
We've talked about on the show how I wouldn't even know where to sign the kid up for baseball.
That's sad, yeah.
Like between the ages of
But
like
it's still pretty strong in certain communities.
right?
But not like it was.
Overall,
by and large.
in the 50s and 60s, it was a way of life. Baseball.
Overall, basketball has become an elitist. Like, basketball to me is almost like field hockey and lacrosse. Like, if you ain't 6'2" in the sixth grade,
yeah, you're done.
You're done. Ain't nobody playing pickup games. There's
No.
no youth. It's an elitist sport.
I will say this about baseball, Jay, and you'll appreciate this, and this is only the town I live in. I can't speak for other towns. But a Rocky River Little League had been trending in the wrong direction. We've been getting less and less people. This year, now we have new leadership. Our new commissioner of the league is around my age, which is good. So we got younger.
I'm hearing good things about Rocky River Little League.
Yeah, yeah.
And not because people know I know you.
Yeah.
But you're right about that. It's about the people in charge.
Yep.
And
Are you still passionate about making it relevant?
And our third and fourth grade league this year increased from 8 teams to 10. So that was
Wow.
good. And how about this? So there's a guy named, we did a video here in the studio. You weren't here that day. After our show, we recorded something for the kids.
Yeah, I was here when they came in.
Oh, yeah, you were. That's
here,
right.
yeah.
So we recorded a video because this guy, George Hine, who was one of the guys who was here, he had this idea about, because Little League for us ends the middle of July.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, there's a lot of kids that love playing baseball. They want to play more. So he decided to start a fall, well, we're calling it fall, but it's really mid-July to the end of September.
Yeah.
Mostly late summer. Anyway, it's called fall
rec,
ball.
right?
Through the rec league, but it's fall ball, and most of the kids play Little League, and a lot of the coaches. So I got involved and a couple other coaches.
What's the interest?
It went through the roof. So the original plan was to have, in the first year, 4 teams in the majors, which is kids that are about to start 6th and 7th grade, and 4 teams in the minors, which is kids that are starting to do going into 4th and 5th grade.
Right.
2 weeks before the deadline, we were short in both leagues. And then we started getting the word out, and it's gone bananas. We've now filled those teams over. We've had to expand to 6 teams in each division.
Wow.
We could go to 8 teams. We just don't, right now, have enough managers yet. But for next year, we will extend.
Do you have a relationship with the high school coach at Rocky River?
We do, absolutely. In fact,
so
the guy,
that's perfect.
In fact, George Hine, who's like our commissioner, he just texted me a text, an exchange between him and the high school coach.
Yeah.
And they are involved. And Rocky River Baseball had its best season ever this year.
I noticed they
in
had
high
a good
school.
year. So,
Yeah.
Bull, I saw this in Florida. I've seen it in Ohio and
Yeah.
New Jersey, where I was very involved with Corey in rec,
Right.
Little League, travel, and then
Yes.
high school.
Right.
The communities where baseball is thriving and doing the best is a community where the high school coach works hand in glove with the Little League coaches.
And that
the
was a
commissioner.
problem.
I'd heard